Hi guys, Pharrell Williams here with Artist Talk.
This is part 2 of Artist Talk with Henry Rollins. Today our conversation continues with life outside of music, as we hear Henry's thoughts on society, people, and politics.
I'm not trying to cause unrest. I'm trying to start a conversation.
It's so emotionally grounded where you come from.
Minds have to change because the paperwork's already been laid out. The Constitution's the Constitution. That's it. You can amend it.
So people are not following the rules.
Don't treat your fellow Americans like it's box wine with a 30% discount. These are people.
We have ideas, and usually they look at us and they, oh, you're a musician, so what do you know?
Someone who would go across a desert that can kill you, you want to be an American that bad? I'm honored to share a country with you.
That's heavy, man.
It's as heavy as it could possibly get.
Oops.
Social agitators have historically played a valuable role in society. Isn't that ultimately what you do?
I personally wouldn't like to think what I do is agitation, in that I'm not trying to cause unrest. I'm trying to start a conversation.
Right.
I think in no way am I controversial or in any way provocative, in that none of my ideas get anyone killed. And so I do think that I'm one of those people that maybe Thomas Jefferson would say, that's what we fought for. He's got a big mouth. Well, yeah, that's what we were designing, for him to have this platform to do his thing. And so I don't know what I would call myself.
Well, that's a good question right there, because what would you call yourself? You know, you express yourself on many different platforms. I mean, what would you call yourself?
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
Why not? I'm a crass opportunist, in that I'm really not good at any of the stuff I do. I'm a jackass of all tirades. When I was doing music at some point in the 80s, Hollywood directors started calling me, hey, you're that crazy guy, can you act? I'm like, yeah, can you pay? Because this top ramen noodle diet's killing me. I'll try anything. And so I started my own little publishing company in the 80s to write my dumb little books, and I stayed with it. Started doing the talking shows, stayed with that. At one point, hey, you want to do a voiceover? Yeah, I'll put my voice over anything, over rice, over noodles, and over your ad. And so I say yes to stuff. Why not? And so I just go running at things. And so what am I? Not only am I an American, but I'm an Americanist, and not really a survivalist as much as one who seeks to prevail. And I think one of the things luckily, guys like me have to do everything 3 times before we get it right. Thankfully, I know that. So I know that I have to get up early and try it 5 times, because the 8-year-old will be able to get past it in 2 times. So I have to be on my feet longer, but at least I know it. And so I just go at stuff. And it served me very well, in that my resume is pretty varied, and I have a pretty interesting life. I get to do different stuff and have a bit of access, because I just said, yeah, I'll try that. I mean, why would I hold back?
What keeps you up at night?
Deadlines, worrying about what I have to accomplish the next day. I overthink things like a lot of people. The mind races, especially at night when I should be calming down. I'm kind of revving up. I don't like anticipation. I'd rather be doing the thing. I don't like thinking that I have to do it. I want to go do it.
Yeah.
And so that keeps me up. Basically, anticipation is kind of being unable to de-rev myself and to put myself down. So usually it's sheer exhaustion that kind of brings me to the ground. Thankfully there's an elliptical treadmill for that.
If any of you have ever heard my attitude about what I like to do to people standing on a moving sidewalk at an airport, this is a crime against time. And if for their own good, I am planting my foot in their ass. I don't want to do it, I am helping. And if you are standing still on a moving sidewalk, you think you have that much time to live? Are you kidding me? I am power walking, I'm vaulting in the air.
So you've done several USO tours. What got you involved with that?
Several years ago, the USO contacted me, and they basically said, we don't know who you are, but we have a sign-up sheet at bases all over the world. If your dream guest could come and be here, who would it be? Your name keeps showing up on these lists, so we don't know who you are, but the soldiers seem to like you. So what do you say? I said, well, I'm certainly interested, but you might want to check me out and see how jealously I protect my First Amendment rights. I'll say whatever's on my mind. If you really want to send me into these places with my leanings and my particular posture and my flagrant use of the First Amendment, you might want to check that out. And they got back to me and they're like, wow. I'm like, yeah. And they said, you got a lot of opinions. I'm like, just like everyone else. And they said, well, we think it's fine. So would you like to come out and be with the soldiers? I said, absolutely.
Wow.
And that started a very long relationship with the USO that had me in Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait. I'm the first ever USO performer in Egypt, in high threat condition parts of Turkey, wherever they asked me to go. Plus several visits to Walter Reed and Bethesda Naval Hospital. And it's the hospital visits that were perhaps the toughest, because it's room after room. Never met any women, but I'd meet young men who had been injured. And these injuries, it's not like a skinned elbow. It is the most horrible combinations of limb and anatomical loss. The most poignant visit was I was walking down the hall with Shaquille O'Neal and John Elway. We're all making this visit. And a woman comes out of a small room, a small patient's room, and she says, excuse me, you look familiar. And I said, oh yes, ma'am, okay. She said, could you come into my son's room for a minute? I said, yes, ma'am. I walk in, and there's a photograph, a color Xerox, of me on the wall, standing next to a very handsome, strapping young man. And she said, is that you? I said, yep, short, gray, and angry. That's me. And I said, is that young man in the photograph the guy in that bed who's in the fetal position with his face in this awful rictus and his hands balled up? And she said, yep, that's him. I said, what happened? She said, traumatic brain injury. He's lost, I think, 60% of his brain. And so and he looks much different. And so he sees me. The lights go on. He recognizes me. He can't speak. He can make sounds. And he gestures towards me. And she said, would you do a photograph with my son? I said, absolutely. So I said, move over. I'm coming in. I jumped in bed with him. I said, okay, in this picture, you and I are breaking out of here. And we're both like, yeah. And we did all these photos. And this one was like, who is this guy? And so I said, I got out of bed. I said, it was an honor to meet your son, an honor to meet you. And, carry on. And she said, well, thank you for doing that, but he's not going to remember this tomorrow. Like every time he goes into a convulsion, he forgets everything that happened that day. And you leave realizing this woman is going to be putting diapers on her son for the rest of her life. And she had a 12-year break of diaper detail, and now she's back to it with an adult man. And it really puts a lot of this tough talk in perspective. We are going to, all that tough guy stuff. You're like, really? You're talking very stupidly, because here's what it looks like. Here's what it ends up looking like.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy, man.
It's as heavy as it could possibly get.
Right.
Because they're so young. These are all young people, young men. I think we artist types, we get a very kind of rarefied bit of access in that when you connect with someone via music, when you write a lyric or a book or whatever that affects someone emotionally, they'll connect with you emotionally. And I've had people communicate things to me that would peel the paint off your car. They've confessed war crimes to me. They have told me how their friends have come home and killed themselves after Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm the one they talk to. They've told me, my son was killed in Iraq. We found some of your DVDs and his stuff, and I just want to thank you because my son really liked you. And so people lay a lot of heavy stuff on me. They just kind of pull down the defense and go like, here, I've never told this to anyone, but I'm going to tell it to you. And so we get a real insight into the human mechanic that a politician would only hope to get into. And so in my life, in 32 years of really being up close and very personal with people, they've really given me an amazing insight into the great strengths and great frailties of themselves and also myself, because you can't help but be introspective when someone has been so extrospective.
You predict the future.
Cool.
Okay? War.
We'll make it irrelevant in this century.
Immigration.
Instead of criminalizing these people, embrace it as a great part of the very idea and fabric of America. In your lifetime, in the next 20 to 50 years, I think you'll see marriage equality across America